Elena Rodriguez had been a housekeeper for 12 years. She had worked in tiny apartments and giant mansions. She had cleaned for nice families and mean families, but she had never, ever seen anything like what happened on her third morning at the Bennett house. It started with a sound. Crash! Elena jumped so hard she almost dropped her feather duster. The noise came from the big living room, the one with windows so tall they touched the ceiling and furniture that cost more money than Elena made in a whole year. She ran toward the sound, her heart beating fast like a drum. When she got there, she saw pieces of blue glass scattered all over the shiny white floor. They sparkled in the morning sunshine like tiny pieces of a frozen ocean. A fancy vase, the kind rich people keep on tables just to look pretty, was now completely destroyed. And standing right in the middle of all that broken glass was little Daniel Bennett. He was only 5 years old. His blonde hair stuck up in funny directions like he had just woken up. He wore SpongeBob pajamas, the bright yellow ones with SpongeBob's big smile all over them. But Daniel wasn't smiling. Elena waited for him to cry. That's what kids do when they break something expensive, right? They cry. They say sorry. They look scared. But Daniel didn't do any of those things. Instead, something very strange happened. The little boy walked across the room slowly, like he was in a dream. His bare feet made soft patting sounds on the cold floor. Elena watched, confused and worried, as Daniel walked straight toward the living room wall. Then he did something that made Elena's stomach feel sick. Daniel pressed his small face flat against the white wall. His nose squished against the paint. His arms hung down by his sides, completely still, like a toy robot that someone had turned off. His whole body became stiff and frozen. Daniel. Elena called softly. Sweetie, are you okay? No answer. Daniel, honey, can you hear me? Still nothing. Elena looked at the clock on the wall. 1 minute passed, then 2 minutes, then 5 whole minutes. Daniel didn't move even a tiny bit. He just stood there, face pressed against the wall, like a statue in a museum. Elena's hand started shaking. Something was very, very wrong. In her 3 days working at this huge mansion, she had barely heard Daniel speak to anyone. His father, Victor Bennett, was always gone, flying to different countries for business meetings, making phone calls in his office, or working on his laptop until midnight. The house was always so quiet. Too quiet, like a library where nobody was allowed to talk. But this was different. This felt dangerous. Elena walked closer to Daniel. She knelt down beside him so she could see his face better. That's when she heard something that made her skin feel cold and bumpy. Daniel was whispering. Daniel. Elena said quietly, What are you saying, baby? She leaned in close, so close she could hear his breath coming out fast and scared, like a puppy hiding during a thunderstorm. Then she heard the words. 3 words that made Elena want to cry. Turn to wall. Elena blinked hard. What did you say, sweetie? Daniel's voice was flat and empty, like he was a robot saying words he had memorized. Turn to wall. Turn to wall. Turn to wall. He kept saying it over and over and over again. Elena felt goosebumps all over her arms. Why would a 5-year-old child say something so strange? It sounded like a punishment, like something a mean adult would make a kid do when they were in trouble. Daniel, Elena whispered, gently touching his small shoulder. Who taught you to say that? Daniel's body went even more stiff. He pushed his face harder against the wall, like he was trying to disappear inside it. Elena felt tears burning in her eyes. She had worked for many families with children. She knew what playing looked like. She knew what pretending looked like. This wasn't playing. This wasn't pretending. This was fear. Baby, look at me, Elena said, her voice shaking. Nobody is angry about the vase. It was just an accident. Breaking things happens all the time. Please just turn around and look at me. But Daniel just kept whispering those 3 terrible words. Turn to wall. Turn to wall. Turn to wall. Each time he said it, his voice got quieter and sadder. Elena's mind started racing. She remembered what Mr. Bennett had told her when he hired her 3 days ago. The woman who worked here before Elena, a nanny named Rebecca Walsh, had been fired for stealing money from Mr. Bennett's safe. Mr. Bennett had seemed very angry when he talked about Rebecca. He said things like, I trusted her and she betrayed us. But now Elena wondered, what if Rebecca had done something much worse than stealing money? Elena tried something different. Daniel, I'm not Rebecca. My name is Elena. I'm new here. Remember? I would never, ever hurt you. The second Elena said Rebecca's name, Daniel's whole body started shaking like a leaf in the wind. He pressed himself even harder against the wall. Please, he whispered, and his voice sounded like it was breaking into pieces. Please, I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. Turn to wall. Turn to wall. Elena's heart felt like it was cracking in half. This sweet little boy was absolutely terrified. But terrified of what? Terrified of who? She looked around the giant living room. Everything was perfect. The furniture looked brand new. The paintings on the walls probably cost more than a car. The carpet was so white and fluffy it looked like a cloud. Everything was beautiful and perfect. But sometimes beautiful things hide ugly secrets. Daniel, Elena said firmly but kindly, I need you to be brave for me. Turn around and look at my face. I promise with all my heart, nothing bad will happen. For just 1 second, Daniel's head moved a tiny bit. Elena could see the side of his face. She could see his small nose. She could see his long eyelashes, wet with tears. He was trying not to cry. He was trying so hard to be brave. But then he snapped his face back to the wall. Turn to wall, he repeated, like a broken toy that only knows one song. Elena stood up slowly. Her legs felt wobbly. She looked at the broken glass still scattered on the floor. She looked at the small boy, frozen against the wall like he was glued there. Something terrible had happened in this house. Something that had taught a 5-year-old child to punish himself. Something that had made him so scared that he couldn't even look at a kind person who was trying to help him. Then Elena heard a sound that made her stomach drop. Slam! The front door closed hard somewhere far away in the mansion. Heavy footsteps echoed through the halls, the kind of footsteps that belonged to an adult wearing expensive shoes. Victor Bennet was home. The footsteps got louder, closer, click, click, click on the marble floor. Daniel heard them too. His whispers became faster and more desperate. Turn to wall, turn to wall, turn to wall. Elena took a deep breath. Whatever was about to happen, she knew one thing for absolute certain. She would not let this little boy suffer alone anymore. The footsteps stopped right outside the living room door. Elena's hands trembled as she prepared to face Victor Bennet, one of the richest, most powerful men in the city, and tell him that something was very, very wrong with his son. But first, she had to figure out what dark, horrible secret was hiding behind those 3 haunting words that Daniel couldn't stop saying. The door handle turned. Elena's heart pounded. The door swung open. Victor Bennet stormed into the living room like an angry thundercloud. He was tall, so tall he seemed to touch the ceiling. His gray suit probably cost more money than most people make in 3 months. His face was red and angry from whatever business meeting had gone wrong that day. His eyes looked around the room fast, taking everything in. The broken glass sparkling on the floor, his son pressed against the wall like a statue, and Elena kneeling beside the boy. What is going on here? His voice boomed so loud it made the windows rattle. Elena jumped to her feet. Her heart was beating so fast and so loud she could hear it in her ears like drums. Mr. Bennet, sir, I can explain. Then start explaining, Victor interrupted. His voice was sharp like a knife. Why is my son standing at that wall? Why haven't you cleaned up this mess? What kind of housekeeper are you? Daniel flinched when he heard his father's loud voice. He pressed his forehead even harder against the wall. His small shoulders started shaking like leaves in a storm. Turn to wall, he whispered so quietly Elena almost couldn't hear him. Turn to wall, turn to wall. Victor stopped moving. Completely stopped. His angry face changed to confusion, then to something that looked like fear. What did he just say? Victor demanded, staring at his son. Elena took a big, deep breath. This was her chance to help Daniel, even if it made his father very angry at her. Sir, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He's been like this for more than an hour. Every single time I try to talk to him, he says those 3 words and won't move away from the wall. That's ridiculous, Victor snapped. He walked closer to Daniel. Tommy, stop this silly behavior right now. Come away from that wall and say hello to your father like a normal child. But Daniel didn't move. If anything, he seemed to get smaller against the white paint, like he was trying to disappear into it. "Turn to wall," he repeated, and his voice cracked like he was about to start crying. "Turn to wall." Victor's face turned an even darker shade of red. "I said stop it, Daniel. This behavior is not acceptable. Look at me when I'm talking to you." "No!" Elena shouted before she could stop herself. The word hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. Victor spun around to stare at her. His eyes were huge with shock. Nobody ever shouted at Victor Bennett. He was too rich, too powerful, too important. Elena's whole body was shaking like she was standing in snow, but she didn't back down. She didn't look away. "Don't yell at him," she said firmly. "Can't you see us terrified? How dare you tell me how to speak to my own son?" Victor's voice was deadly quiet now, which was somehow scarier than when he was yelling. "You've been here 3 days. What could you possibly know about Daniel?" Elena felt tears burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She stood up straighter and looked Victor right in the eyes. "I know that a 5-year-old doesn't act like this unless someone has hurt him badly," she said. "I know that children don't punish themselves unless someone has taught them to do it." "Taught to?" Victor looked confused now. "What are you talking about?" "Turn to wall," Daniel whispered again, and this time his voice broke completely. A small sob escaped from his lips, a sound so sad it could break anyone's heart. Something inside Elena snapped like a rubber band stretched too far. She couldn't watch this sweet little boy suffer anymore. "When was the last time you really looked at your son, Mr. Bennett?" Elena demanded. Her voice was stronger now. "When was the last time you asked him how he was feeling? When was the last time you stayed home long enough to see what happens when you're gone?" Victor's face went pale, like all the blood had drained out of it. What are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Elena said firmly. "I'm telling you that something terrible happened to Daniel. And I think it happened with Rebecca Walsh." The second Elena said the previous nanny's name, Daniel let out a small whimper like a hurt puppy. His hands pressed flat against the wall like he was trying to push through it and escape to somewhere safe. Victor noticed his son's reaction. For the first time, maybe the first time in months, he really, truly looked at Daniel. Not just a quick glance. Not just a tired look before bed. He actually saw him. He saw how Daniel's body was frozen stiff with fear. He saw the trembling. He saw how Daniel was trying to make himself invisible. "Rebecca was fired for stealing," Victor said slowly, but his voice had lost all its anger. "She took money from my safe." "Maybe she took more than money," Elena said quietly. "Maybe she took your son's sense of safety, his trust, his childhood." Victor stumbled backward like someone had punched him in the stomach. No, that's impossible. I would have known. I would have seen something." "When?" Elena interrupted. "You travel for business all the time. You work 16 hours every single day. When would you have seen anything?" The truth hit Victor like a truck crashing into a wall. How many times had he come home to find Daniel already asleep? How many dinners had he missed? How many bedtime stories had he skipped to take another phone call from Japan or London or New York? "Daniel," Victor whispered. His voice was gentle now, soft like a feather. "Son, please look at Daddy." But Daniel just kept repeating those awful words. "Turn to wall. Turn to wall." Elena knelt down beside the boy again. She spoke very softly. "Daniel, honey, I need you to be very, very brave. Can you show your daddy what Rebecca did to you?" Daniel's whole body went rigid with terror. He shook his head frantically back and forth. No. Can't tell. Can't tell she'll come back. She'll come back and make it worse." "She won't come back," Elena said firmly, putting her hand gently on his shoulder. "She's gone forever. But your daddy needs to know the truth so he can protect you." Daniel turned his head just a tiny bit. Elena could see his face now, covered with tears, his eyes wide with fear that no child should ever feel. "Promise," he whispered. "Promise you won't hurt me." Victor dropped to his knees beside his son. His own eyes filled with tears. "I promise, Daniel. I promise with all my heart. I will never hurt you." Daniel looked at his father. Then he looked at Elena. His small hand shook as he reached for the bottom of his SpongeBob pajama shirt. She said, Daniel's voice was so quiet they had to lean in close. She said if I told anyone, she would make it much, much worse. You're safe now, Elena encouraged him gently. Show us, sweetheart. With trembling fingers that shook like branches in wind, Daniel lifted his shirt. Victor gasped and fell backward onto the floor. Elena put her hand over her mouth to stop herself from screaming. Daniel's small back was covered with marks. Not new ones, but the kind that fade slowly over time. Handprints, belt marks, bruises that had turned yellow and green. Evidence of hands that had been used to hurt instead of heal and protect. Every time I broke something, Daniel said in the tiniest voice imaginable, every time I was too loud, or didn't eat all my vegetables, or spilled my juice, she made me turn to war. Then she... His voice broke completely. He couldn't finish the sentence. She hit you, Elena finished gently, tears rolling down her own cheeks now. Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face like rivers. She said it was our secret. She said if I told Daddy, he would send me away forever because I was a bad boy. She said Daddy only loved good boys who didn't break things. Victor made a sound like a wounded animal, a horrible, heartbroken sound. He reached for his son, but Daniel flinched away, scared even of his own father's touch. I'm sorry, Victor sobbed, tears pouring down his face. Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry. You're not bad. You could never be bad. You're the most precious, wonderful thing in my whole world. Really? Daniel whispered. Really, Victor promised. And Rebecca Walsh is never, ever coming back. Elena watched father and son, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. The truth was out now. The terrible secret that had kept Daniel prisoner was finally in the open, in the light where everyone could see it. But she knew this was just the beginning. Healing would take time. Trust would have to be rebuilt brick by brick. And Rebecca Walsh needed to face justice for what she had done to an innocent child. Mr. Bennett, Elena said quietly, we need to call the police right now. Victor nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. Yes, and lawyers, and doctors, and therapists, and anyone else who can help my son heal from this nightmare. For the first time in months, Daniel stepped away from the wall. He was still scared, still shaking, but he was no longer alone with his terrible secret. The hardest part was over. Now the real work of healing could begin. The very next morning, police sirens filled the air outside the Bennett mansion. Elena watched from the tall window as 3 police cars lined up in the long driveway, their red and blue lights flashing like a carnival. Detective Sarah Chen stepped out of the first car. Her badge shined in the sunlight. She had kind eyes but a serious face, the kind of person who fights for children who can't fight for themselves. We're here to help Daniel, she told Victor as they all sat in the living room. And we're going to make absolutely sure Rebecca Walsh never hurts another child again. Daniel sat close to his father on the big sofa. He was still scared, but he wasn't hiding his face anymore. Elena held his small hand, giving him courage to speak the truth. Can you tell me what Rebecca did to you, Daniel? Detective Chen asked gently, kneeling down so she was at his eye level. Daniel's voice was tiny, like a mouse, but it was brave. She hit me when I broke things. She made me stand at the wall for hours and hours. She said if I told Daddy, he would stop loving me and send me away forever. Detective Chen wrote down every single word in her notebook. You did nothing wrong, Daniel. Nothing at all. You're very brave for telling us. Within 3 hours, something amazing happened. The police found Rebecca Walsh at her new job, working for another rich family that had 2 young children, a boy and a girl. When the police searched Rebecca's apartment, they found a leather belt with Daniel's initials scratched into it. They found a notebook where she had written down her punishment rules for children. They found evidence that she had hurt children before Daniel, too. Daniel's courage just saved those other 2 children, Detective Chen told him later that afternoon. They are safe now because you were brave enough to speak up. Victor hugged his son so tight Daniel could barely breathe. My hero, he whispered into Daniel's hair. My brave, amazing hero. But Elena knew that catching the bad person was only the beginning. Daniel's heart needed to heal, too. His trust needed to grow back. His fear needed to go away. Mr. Bennet, Elena said that night after Daniel had gone to bed. Daniel needs more than just safety. He needs help learning how to trust again, how to be a little boy again instead of being scared all the time. Victor nodded, tears shining in his eyes. Tell me what to do. I'll do anything. Anything at all. Cancel your business trips, Elena said firmly. Stay home. Be his father. That's what he needs most. For the first time in his entire career, Victor Bennet did something shocking. He called his assistant and said 5 words that changed everything. Cancel all my meetings. Forever. So, his assistant gasped on the phone. But what about the $1 million deal in Japan? What about, my son is worth more than all the money in the entire world, Victor replied. And he meant every single word. Dr. Emma Foster was the best child therapist in the whole city. Her office was painted bright yellow like sunshine, with soft pillows everywhere and toys that made Daniel smile for the first time in weeks. I don't like walls, Daniel told her on his first visit, looking nervously at the painted surfaces around him. Dr. Foster smiled warmly. That's perfectly okay. In my office, walls are just decoration. They can't hurt you, and you never, ever have to face them unless you want to. Daniel looked amazed. For months, he had thought walls were for punishment. Now someone was telling him walls were just walls. Really, he whispered, really, Dr. Foster promised. And here's the best part. You get to choose what you do. Always. Nobody will ever make you do something that scares you. Elena squeezed Daniel's hand. See, sweetie, no more scary rules. Just people who care about you. The healing didn't happen overnight like magic. Some mornings, Daniel woke up crying from bad dreams about Rebecca. Some days he would start to walk toward a wall when he felt scared, then catch himself and run to Elena or his daddy instead. But Victor was always there now. Every morning, every afternoon, every bedtime story, every meal, every scraped knee, every laugh, every tear that he learned that being Daniel's daddy was 1,000,000 times more important than being a billionaire businessman. Even if you break everything in this entire house, Victor would tell Daniel every single night before bed. Even if you're loud or messy or make 1,000 mistakes, I will always, always, always love you. Nothing can change that. Nothing in the whole universe. Day by day, week by week, Daniel began to believe his father's words. Then, exactly 1 month after the terrible day by the wall, something magical happened. Daniel was playing with his toy cars on the living room floor, making vroom vroom sounds and laughing. His elbow accidentally knocked over a glass of orange juice. Crash! The glass shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Orange juice splashed everywhere like a sticky waterfall. Elena froze in the kitchen doorway, watching. Her heart stopped. This was THE test. This was the moment that would show how much Daniel had truly healed. Daniel stared at the broken glass. His eyes flickered toward the nearest wall. For one scary second, Elena thought he might run there and start whispering those awful words again. But instead, Daniel did something that made Elena's heart explode with pure joy. He ran straight to her, not to the wall, but to her. Elena, he called out, his voice clear and unafraid. I made a really big mess. Will you help me clean it up? I didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. Elena dropped her dish towel and scooped him up in the biggest, warmest hug in the entire universe. Of course I'll help you. Sweetheart, accidents happen all the time. That's what families do. We help each other. Daniel actually giggled. Really, truly giggled for the first time in forever. We're family. The best family, Elena promised, spinning him around until he laughed even harder. Victor appeared in the doorway, having heard the crash. Instead of looking angry or worried, his face lit up like Christmas morning. Sounds like someone needs a clean-up crew, he announced cheerfully, grabbing paper towels and getting down on his hands and knees to help. Daniel wiggled out of Elena's arms and threw himself at his father, wrapping his small arms around Victor's neck. Daddy, I broke something, but it's okay because families help each other and accidents happen. Victor caught his son and lifted him high in the air, both of them laughing together like it was the best day ever. That's exactly right. Buddy, we're a team, and teams stick together no matter what. 2 years later, something wonderful happened that showed just how much Daniel had grown. He was now 7 years old and in 2nd grade. His teacher, Mrs. Anderson, called Victor with exciting news. "Daniel is the most caring, kind child in my entire class," she said. Today, a new student was crying because some kids were being mean to her. Daniel walked right up, took her hand, and said, "It's okay to be scared, but you don't have to be scared alone. Want to be friends." Victor's eyes filled with proud tears. His son had turned his pain into kindness, his scars into strength. That evening, Daniel had a big question for his father. "Daddy," he said as they worked on a dinosaur puzzle together, "are there other kids out there who are scared like I used to be?" "What do you mean, son?" "Kids who have to face walls and can't tell anyone because they are too frightened. Can we help them find their brave voices too?" Victor pulled Daniel onto his lap and hugged him tight. "Yes, we can help all the scared children. Do you want to do that together?" And that's exactly what they did. The Bennett Foundation for Brave Children became the most powerful organization in the country fighting to protect kids from adults who hurt them. Daniel, now confident and happy, became their youngest helper, showing other children that speaking up was safe and important. On his 10th birthday, Daniel gave his first big speech to hundreds of grown-ups who wanted to help children. "I used to think my voice didn't matter," he told the audience, with Victor and Elena watching proudly from the front row. "I thought if I spoke up, something terrible would happen. But speaking up was the best thing I ever did. It saved my life, and it saved other kids too. Your voice is powerful. Use it to help someone." The whole room stood up and clapped so loud it sounded like thunder. Today, that wall in the Bennett mansion holds something beautiful, a painting Daniel made in art class showing a little boy surrounded by people who love him, with bright sunshine and rainbows and no scary walls anywhere. Daniel Bennett proved that even the most frightening secrets can be healed with love, courage, and people who believe in you. No child should ever have to suffer alone. And thanks to one little boy's bravery, many never will. This could save a child's life today. If Daniel's story made your heart race, don't just watch and leave. Here's how you can be someone's hero right now. Smash that like button if you believe every child deserves to be heard and protected. Share this story immediately. Tag 3 friends who need to see this. You never know who's living this nightmare in silence. A parent, teacher, neighbor, or even a child might desperately need to hear Daniel's message. Comment and tell us. What time is it where you're watching? Have you ever had to speak up for someone who couldn't speak for themselves? Do you think more people need to hear stories like this? Subscribe and hit that notification bell. We share true stories that expose hidden pain and show the power of courage. Stories that could literally save lives. Warning signs. Parents and teachers, watch for these. Child suddenly becoming quiet or withdrawn. Fear of certain adults or specific places. Regression in behavior, acting younger than their age. Unexplained injuries or marks. Saying things like it's our secret or don't tell. Extreme fear of making mistakes or breaking things. To every child watching, if someone is hurting you, it's not your fault. Tell a trusted adult. Keep telling until someone listens and helps you. You deserve to be safe and loved. Like this video right now. Share it with someone who needs hope. Comment your location and one word that describes how this story made you feel. Subscribe for more stories that matter. Every view equals another child who might find courage to speak up. Every share equals another adult who might recognize the signs. Every comment equals another voice joining the fight to protect children. Remember, your voice matters. Your awareness matters. And somewhere, a child is waiting for someone like you to care enough to listen. What are you waiting for?